What's the difference between metaphysics and epistemology? This video will go over the differences between these two branches of philosophy and give some history about each to help you understand as clearly as possible the differences between the two and why they're each important to human understanding. But first, let's start with the basic definitions and concepts of both. Epistemology is the study of the nature, origin, and scope of knowledge. Epistemology is the branch of philosophy that deals with questions of knowledge, like how does one know what is true and what's not? How do you know that you even know something? What even is knowledge? Metaphysics, on the other hand, is the branch of philosophy that studies what is ultimate reality, answering questions like what is there and what is it like? What metaphysics specifically studies and what precisely it is controversial and difficult to define, though. The reason being is this branch of philosophy and what it attempts to solve has changed throughout the centuries. However, questions like, what is a person? Is time a real thing? What's the nature of ultimate reality, if there is one? All have to do with metaphysics. Although many philosophers up until the 17th century questioned knowledge and issues that had to do with being and eternal things, it was then that what is now referred to as new metaphysics and formal epistemological philosophy was born. Specifically, the French philosopher René Descartes, thought by many to be the founder of modern philosophy, began to distinguish between epistemology and metaphysics. With Cartesian skepticism, Descartes questioned what we could truly know. Although unlikely, what if a powerful demon were tricking our senses, making it seem that what was reality was something else? The modern version of this argument is, what if we're just a brain in a vat being fed information that makes it seem like we have arms, legs, and live in reality? Until Descartes, philosophers generally took the world to be what it was. But now, since we can't know for sure what is real, Descartes wrote, we need a stable foundation of knowledge before we can create metaphysical systems. After all, it's through knowledge that metaphysicians claim to be able to say what reality is. Descartes, who was what is called a continental rationalist, believed one could come to rational, obvious conclusions about what reality is, and thus begin building metaphysical systems off of those very basic conclusions. His cogito ergo sum, or I think therefore I am conclusion, to his skeptical problem gave him a foundation to build on. Now, of course, his conclusions are heavily contested, but the important thing is he and the continental rationalists left us is to have metaphysics and do metaphysics, one would have to solve the problems of epistemology first. Now, what are these fundamental questions in epistemology? Well, all the questions and tasks of epistemology can be sorted into two main categories. Number one, determining the nature of knowledge. What is it? How do we distinguish between someone who knows something and someone who fails to know something? Number two, determining the extent of what we can know. How do we acquire knowledge, and are there limits to what we can know? Most philosophers believe knowledge, specifically propositional knowledge, is comprised of three core parts: belief, or an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists; truth, or the idea that one's beliefs are in accordance with reality or objective facts; and justification, or why one has good reason for holding their beliefs. Now, it's issues around justification that have led to many great philosophers from Descartes' time onward to conclude that humanity can know nothing, or at most very little. Those called epistemological skeptics conclude that one need not pursue metaphysics at all, since we can't and even know anything about claims it makes. For instance, one of the great epistemological skeptics, 18th century empiricist David Hume, argued that knowledge and truths could only come from two sources. These were relations of ideas or matters of fact in real existence, an idea referred to as Hume's fork. Relations of ideas refer to knowledge discoverable by the mere operation of thought, like all bachelors are unmarried, or those of algebra and arithmetic, like 2 + 2 = 4. Matters of fact refer to empirical knowledge about how the world is, which we derive from perception and science, like it's raining outside, or the acceleration of gravity is 9.8 meters per second. Like a fork, both prongs can't touch, meaning matters of fact can't influence relations of ideas, and vice versa. For any other type of knowledge, including metaphysical theories about reality, Hume declared, commit it then to the flames, for it can contain nothing but sophistry and illusion. Skepticism that metaphysics was impossible continued into the 20th century with the logical positivist movement, which echoed David Hume's earlier empiricist work. These philosophers, including A.J. Ayer and those in the Vienna Circle school of thought, believe that only statements verifiable through direct observation or logical proof are meaningful. The meaning of a statement was its prediction of observable results of an experiment. Thus, there is no need to postulate the existence of any objects other than these very basic observations. In other words, there's no need to do metaphysics, since metaphysical claims require more knowledge than what can be learned in an observable experiment. It only has been into the last several decades that metaphysics has been reborn, so to speak. Logical positivism and pure empiricism proved to be self-defeating philosophies. Ayer himself stated that the most important defect of logical positivism was nearly all of it was false. After all, the statement that only statements which can be verified by experience are meaningful is in itself not verifiable. The work of epistemological skeptics helped us realize that pure verifiable knowledge is fully impossible since subjects perceive the world, but we can have partial knowledge of things which can then be used to help make metaphysical claims and understand reality better. So if epistemology studies knowledge and what we can know, what exactly does metaphysics study now? Well, the truth is there's not a full consensus on what metaphysics does or how it's supposed to work. Now, for example, in one sense, philosophers believe the job of metaphysics is to run parallel to science, helping derive conclusions about a fundamental reality. For others, metaphysics is a catch-all branch of philosophy in which we dump questions that don't specifically fit into epistemology, ethics, or logic alone. Perhaps metaphysics is best understood by some of the problems it seeks to answer. Now, here's a few of them that are ongoing to this very day. Number one, those of ontology, or a branch of metaphysics that studies being and existence exclusively. Ontologists try to determine things about being, like how we group similar things into basic categories. For example, we notice many things are white, like the snow or a car. What exactly is white? Is it what's called a universal, its own thing that appears on many individual things? Or do universals not exist, only individual things that have a resemblance? It also attempts to answer things like which of these entities exists on the most fundamental level. For example, what's a person? Isn't a person just a large group of cells? But aren't cells just atoms? Does that mean a person is simply an illusion and fundamentally just atoms in a certain arrangement? Another example is the philosophy of mind. In a world that appears to be just nature and the laws of nature, where does the human mind fit in? What is consciousness exactly? Is it a particular type of substance separated from everything else? Is the mind and matter simply one substance, all the same? Metaphysics also deals with causation, determinism, and free will. Was there a single causal event for all of existence? Do causes happen between two events, like a boat hitting an iceberg and sinking, or just two entities, or things like the boat and the iceberg? If things are all caused by previous factors, how come we have free will to make our own choices then? Space and time are also issues in new metaphysics. Questions here can include what exactly is space and time, and how do they relate? Why does time seem to move in one direction only? Do abstract objects like mathematics exist outside a framework of time? In conclusion, I hope this short video began to help you differentiate between epistemology and metaphysics. Both of these branches of philosophy are alive and well today and work together to help us answer questions no other species seems to want to ask, like what is reality? Who are we? And what is our purpose if there even is one? Now, if you like this video, please subscribe for more using the link in the description and turn on the notification bell to receive updates when new videos are out. And if the video helped you at all, please give it a thumbs up as this helps it get traction in the YouTube algorithm. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.